The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The masterstroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
All right, welcome everybody to World Blockchain Roundtable. It's been a while since I have hosted and needed to read through all of the updates, so apologies if I misread anything. This is episode 117, Blockchain as a Solution for Economic Immigration. Our hosts today are Greg from Rivet. Greg is back. It's great to see you again.
Thanks. Good to be back.
And me, I'm the founder, architect Dragon Chain, and the master of ceremonies today. We had a few people abandon us today. I feel abandoned. No, but they some people aren't feeling well today and or are unavailable. So maybe end of summer, short staffing stuff, right? I know talking to the Europeans, they're all like still on holiday somewhere, right? So I guess it's kind of the American version. It's like, well, I can't be on the show today. I have to do something. I have a day off, right? Anyway, so quick update on the layer ownership tokens distribution from last week's episode. Each host will receive 155 lot. Every topic contributor will receive 58 lot. Last week's theme was XRP versus SEC, nominated by Dayrox, who will receive 58 lot. These ownership tokens come with free edits, indent, in the layer, governance votes for the show, and perpetual passive income. There is also an update. So there is a World Blockchain Roundtable DAO suggestion for September themes. Make your suggestions by next Wednesday so that we can all vote on them for September. So all of the shows in September. So get in there and make some suggestions, right? And the theme of this week, as I said before, blockchain as a solution for economic emigration, nominated also by Dayrox. Man, he's on a roll.
Awesome.
So we go straight to community questions. You have anything to say to like open up?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say to Dayrox, sorry I missed your topic last week. I gave myself a surprise amateur tongue piercing at 2 points, but with both of my canines. So I was unable to speak, and I was in quite a lot of pain. So I didn't even have a chance to jump into the comments.
I'm sorry.
But I'm totally back to normal, and I decided not to put any gauges in my tongue, so we're good.
Yes. No, you sound great. No lisp, no, that's the type of stuff. That's always scary stuff. So.
Oh, it was
pain.
It was crazy too, because it happened the day before, and I wasn't thinking that it was going to be that big of a deal. And then overnight, it was like, oh, infection.
I'm sorry, man. Well, it's good you're back. Yeah. So first off, our first question from Dayrox, man, on a roll, Dayrox. How can blockchain stop economic immigration and solve the problem with illegal immigrants? So the funny thing is the emigration versus immigration. So EMI versus IMMI, and immigration is inbound. So people come into your country, whereas immigration is people who leave a country, right?
I don't know of any place that has a law against leaving it. I'm sure there
have been some. Like I would imagine North Korea, some.
Oh yeah, North Korea, I guess.
Maybe. Definitely like Soviet Union when they would defect. I mean, that
Mhm.
was an
Well, I mean, the
illegal.
classic example, right? East Germany, right?
Yes, yeah, or they'd shoot you if you. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um,
So I
so,
guess to
but
answer the question, I would say
yeah,
it offers a private channel via which to execute the necessary bribes to leave.
that's interesting. That's a good point, right? Um,
Yep.
well, it depends if it's physical or virtual, right? I mean, because the subject of today is I read as an economic emigration, meaning
Yeah.
I'm going to economically do stuff over there. I'm going to start my company in
Right.
Switzerland. I'm going to, launch some project out of
Right.
Asia or Dubai or something because my own country is backwards on the rules, right? So I'm just gonna not gonna break any laws. I'm just gonna go do stuff over
Right.
there, which
Right. Rather than and rather than and I would say that rather than leaving a place, right, you could geofence out the place that you
yes,
live from your service, and you can operate a business in another jurisdiction from your home without having to leave it.
yeah,
And that might be, I think the simplest answer to that question is it won't stop economic emigration, but it will virtualize it such that you can leave and essentially become part of what amounts to a network state,
yes,
where you are fleeing the jurisdiction with your business, but nothing else.
yep, yep. And it's it we'll probably get further into this, but it's all, in my opinion,
Mhm.
about competition that these states are, no matter whether they are intending to or not, they are competing for uh, people, wealth, and things. Right? It's essentially they should want their community to be stronger, big or small, nation as it is.
Yeah,
The more their own people's business is conducted inside of their own borders, whether it's because you're collecting taxes or which is the bad reason, but the good reason is that those jobs for your other people will be there and
yeah.
the wealth won't
Well,
leak. But
that raises an interesting point because I think that the place where states actually care about emigration versus immigration versus the people of the country care about emigration versus immigration, right? The people of the country may care because immigrants in large swaths, for especially economic migrants, change the culture quite a bit when they flood in. You can see that happening in France, right? Like France has
yeah,
the ultimate example of it on their hands right now, and it's destabilizing their culture enough that it's destabilizing their politics.
yeah,
And that is something that I think in the United States has been in detente for years and years and years, right? Because we actually have the federated example of the states
mhm,
individually stepping in to fill a void where the federal government will refuse to, right? So you
yeah,
kind of you see what happens in France where the globalist enterprise of opening up borders to realize the Adam Smith ideal of free movement of labor, right?
mhm,
Um, that is their imperative, and France has executed it quite well as a sort of a proxy of that regime. But from the standpoint of the people of the country, executed quite poorly because it hasn't protected the culture. Um,
yes. And it's
whereas
really
in
funny in France because they have even in recent history had some very extreme forms of attempting to protect their culture, their language, right? That they,
Mhm.
when La Weekend came out, they were like, "Oh no, we can't have this adoption of English. We have to have a committee that controls the language." And yet, they don't care about the rest of the culture, or you know, all
Yeah,
kinds
well, I
of
mean, and
stuff.
they've
It's
actually
crazy.
done some pretty hostile things to the culture there.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you guys recall the Charlie, or if you recall the Charlie Hebdo shootings.
Yep.
That was the sort of I wouldn't call it journalistic. I'd compare it more to the New Yorker if I was going to
Yeah.
compare it to anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
A magazine based sort of cultural commentary and intellectual writings, maybe more pseudo intellectual writings and comedy, but they issued a cartoon strip where they featured a drawing of Muhammad, and the response was a terrorist attack, and the government sided with, oddly enough, the shooters.
Yeah.
In its response to that, right?
Yep.
And that was, I think, a turning point in Europe for how emigration versus emigration as an imperative for the nation state versus an imperative for the country kind of came into first conflict.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And by the way, you could look competitively also, because if you think about it, okay, from the perspective of the nation itself, which you might care about taxes and other negative things for from the context of the people. So if you think about the citizens, you look at a country like the United States right now, and emigration is happening, especially in the most important fields like cryptocurrency or various other technologies, right?
Right. California is a great example of that.
Yes. Yet we do have immigration. So we are flooding in people. So you have to think about it from the point of view of a citizen. I can see my potential to start a business is fleeting. I need to do it somewhere else. All of the businesses that are doing things that I might find a job in, let's say, are now all going to be overseas. And any of the jobs that are here are going to be taken by the new immigrants. So it's a really, really negative situation. And if you look at a country like Dubai or like Switzerland, they are at once not flooding in new immigrants generally. Some of them are, right? But the big thing is emigrants, that is the people that are coming there to build business from other countries are flooding in. So they are doing really well competitively, right? And in the U.S. is like say, I Am for I Am mentions you have to renounce citizenship. If you ever, you should go watch the interview with Roger Ver about what he had to do and why and how crazy it was. And it's so odd that I actually would like to see someone, let's say a senator or congressman, so many of them have dual citizenships with different countries, right? And you have to think that, in my opinion, that should be not allowed in a representative position. You shouldn't be allowed to have a dual loyalty. If you're going to represent me, in the very least, I want you to represent my country, right? Even if you aren't going to represent this district, right? But if you're going to also be a dual citizen for some other country, that's
at the very least, you would need some serious disclosures, right? Like you would need to issue a conflict of interest statement with every single thing that you.
That's what they would do, but they lie. So I wouldn't just like no. It's like, do you think that ancient Greeks would allow? Okay, let's say, oh, we're in Athens, and oh yeah, this guy we're going to vote into office. He's also a dual citizenship of Sparta, right? So and he's okay, right? And you imagine one of them having dual citizenship with Persia or some small
or
state in Asia Minor. It's like
dual citizenship with Russia, for example, would be the one that would cause people gigantic headaches here.
And so my thought is, what if one of these people had dual citizenship and then renounced their U.S. citizenship? So it's like we're fine with you having dual citizenship for representation, but at the same time, if you want to leave or you want to not be taxed while you're living abroad for 20 years, you have to renounce your citizenship outright. And you have to, I think, go to an embassy or something and go through this. Roger Ver laid it all out, and I was like, I never knew any of this stuff. It's so crazy. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, and then there's who's the, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to the accountability meetings that the House of Representatives has been putting on since the Republicans took over. That there is a rep who is a non-voting rep, who's I think the Costa Rica rep. Mm-hmm. That's one way to handle it, right? Give people a voice, but don't give people a vote. If they're
would it be like Puerto Rico or something,
or Puerto Rico, yeah, it was not Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, the Puerto Rican rep, right? I forget what her name is, but and not a fan, right? Because she's been an agitator against even conversations about free speech. Was the one on that committee who made the motion to. I think she was the one on the committee who made the motion to silence RFK. Like he was going to talk about censorship and to move it into a censored private executive session.
I didn't even get to watch. I was busy that week. I wanted to catch up on it. I never did. So that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's good that it happens in front of people though, because at least I think a lot of people are, kind of waking up. It's not just the Democrats or the Republicans. It's free. It's free, all of them. And there are a few of them aren't, right? But parties mean nothing in any of this stuff. They're all owned by various entities. So
but the cool thing is she doesn't have a vote, right, on any bills because she's not technically a representative elected by a U.S. state. So I think that's an example of that a limitation on that kind of power that would seem appropriate. To me,
taxation without representation still. So can't vote.
Well, I mean, it does kind of suck because they do pay fealty to the empire, but in terms of tribute,
man,
they should go back to calling it tribute. I think that's what they should call it.
Actually, it's not they probably should. They should at least change it. I have this gnawing thought that when whatever happens, unless, how do you say? I mean, it's hard to get a word in. No, you can't get any of these ideas out unless you're a stupid celebrity that hand selected by somebody somewhere. And yet, when they do this, when the Fed breaks down and finally dies, they're going to try to replace it with CBDC. If we are not vigilant and say, "Fuck no," it's going to happen. And if we aren't vigilant and change, whatever we do have for money, if we don't change to pure metal or something, we need to call it something so that it doesn't get debased, that it isn't like something that they can easily, trick the world. Because that's what they did. 1913, they tricked the world. We all grew up not quite understanding that until we, kind of came to, and Bitcoin was a big helper for a lot of people to realize what the real situation is, because it's all behind the curtain. And all, you talk to a lot of older people and they will not listen to you about the money supply or where we're headed or any of that.
They've got the Keynesian sleight of hand working for them, right? And that whole thing still drives me nuts because Ludwig von Mises curb stomped the whole idea, basically saying, I know, Joe, you're probably familiar with Say's law, right?
No, I'm not.
The idea that there's no such thing as oversupply of a good, that essentially, if a good has been produced in significant quantity, it will be consumed. Its price will fall. If there's more of it available, then there will be fewer dollars chasing more units of a good or a service, right?
But it says it will still get used.
Well, the implication of it is that supply side interventions don't work. That all they do is drive up prices. And that was something that Keynes was really against, right? He didn't like Say's law, but Ludwig von Mises said this about it, and I'm going to see if I can find this quote because I don't want to misquote him. Mises, Say's law. Let's see what Google does for us.
What
Brave does for us. What Brave does for us. Let's see. I probably need to add Say's Law quote. And images. By the way, great search engine hack. Images is a great way to surface quotes if you can't find them.
No,
They don't censor that yet. So
they're working it.
they haven't got fast enough image recognition on text.
Yeah,
To effectively
they're working
censor
it. I know
search.
Google Photos censors a lot of memes now.
Yeah,
They're still in your folder, but you can't find them.
I'm actually going to try Mises' quote about Kynes because he insulted the shit out of him, and I think it was an insult that was deserved.
Nice.
Let's see.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we're headed. Well, I'm hopeful we're headed in the long run towards a better world, but I think
so I can't find the exact quote, but essentially what he said was Kynes offered no meaningful refutation of Say's Law. All he did was have an emotional reaction against it, and the reason that it got supported was largely because nation states approved of Kynes because he gave them a retrospective justification for policies they already wanted to pursue. Expansionary policy was their desire, and Kynes gave them the intellectual excuse that they were looking for, and that's why he became popular. Not because he had anything useful to say.
Oh yeah, well that's obvious. That's all. It's yeah. I would be willing, by the way, maybe controversial, to say that a large number of the most influential academics are cooked into the system. They're fixed. They're not dumb people, but the only reason that they are there is because they either provide a crutch towards for the broken system, or because they have some type of blood that they get pushed as, oh, this is the genius and all the rest. And you look at Sam Bankman-Fried, you can look at Bill Gates, you can look at Bezos. Yeah.
Oh, my two favorite examples of public intellectuals who don't deserve their position but have it because they're popular with stadies. Jim Cramer is a great one.
Yeah. Well,
he's absolutely useless except for when it comes time to parrot the
he doesn't care about it. He doesn't care about his own reputation for that, right? Who's the other?
Paul Krugman, who can seriously, if he ever hears me, he can shave my balls with his teeth. Because I hate that guy.
No, he's horrible. But he predicted the internet was a fad, and he hates Bitcoin, right? He's an idiot. But I would probably say the vast majority of New York Times are, right. He's still New York Times. Right?
Oh yeah. I mean, he has the platform, and most notably, regularly defends modern monetary theory as if it's a cogent idea that's somehow new.
Crazy shit.
Yeah. But dovetailing that back to the subject of economic emigration, right? One of the fundamental concepts of economics before 1913 was sort of the neoclassical Adam Smith view that the laws of absolute and comparative advantage made sure that free trade internationally would raise the standards of living for everybody who lived in a country. We have broken that with the Keynesian or the Keynesian model, right? Is it Keynes or Kynes? I always say it.
I've always heard Keynes, but they never.
I think it's Kynes in Dune and Keynes in economics.
Probably. We'll go with that. That's good.
So I'm going to say it either the Dune way or the economics way, and I mean the economics guy.
That's all right. That's fine. Okay, you go next. Let's go next question.
Yeah, let's go next.
What do we have next? A question. And by the way, Dave mentions there is a quote from Ron Paul in there. So, or no, maybe not.
Oh yeah.
So, yes, it's basically it's better to give people the freedom to, because between nations or between states or between any two entities, companies, anything else, the place that lets people be more free is going to almost certainly benefit whether that's economically, culturally, maybe you attract all the best artists in the world, like
Right.
Ireland did when they didn't tax artists, right? They probably had a really good effect culturally on Ireland, right? So anyway,
Well, yeah. Well, there's and to touch on this one, the free flow of labor was the assumption I was talking about that Smith
Mhm.
made, and I'm not sure if we can still put as much justification in that critique, because that was a critique of neoclassical economics, right? To say that this assumption about free flow of labor is broken. Well, it does tacitly accept the Marxist theory of labor as a commodity, which I think is a bit broken.
Yeah.
So we can't necessarily rely on that too much, but I do think the right to exit and the right to enter, like the right to freely associate, ultimately, is what this comes down to. And in the United States, we do have a bit of a contradiction in terms on our hands, because we have border laws, but we also have the First Amendment, right? And so so the question is, which of our values, what's at stake with our values there? Because we may need to restrict immigration in order to protect the First Amendment, but we may be damaging the First Amendment by how we restrict immigration. So
yeah, I don't even, and you can't have a welfare state and unlimited immigration, but that's what a lot of people in the U.S. want.
yeah,
Which on the good side, on the bad side is obvious that it's going to make it rough for everybody. But on the good side, it's hopefully going to bring the system down. So
right, and and also that is kind of a Malthusian take, right?
Yeah.
Because it treats people as mouths and not as brains.
True.
And it's possible that for every 100 street camping hobos you get from a distressed jurisdiction, you get one Albert Einstein, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
we
Well,
don't know the ratio there.
I tend to agree heavily with that, but I think it all ties to the fact that if you want good immigration, you will get better results across the board if you don't have that welfare state, because the people
Yeah,
will be coming here to be those brains and to
right.
come
They're
literally
intrinsically
for the
linked.
opportunity, right?
Yeah, we would need a lot of other policy cleanup in order to have a free flow of
Yeah,
immigration
yeah. We need to
be a net benefit, right?
yeah, and it's like I even tend the whole system is broken. So okay,
Yeah.
next question, Dayrock. So technology has no political views. However, when thinking about blockchain, I imagine a world without borders where everyone has an equal opportunity, regardless of whether they were born in the north or the south or east or west. Is there any aspect of patriotism that this technology will make people proud citizens and residents of their own country? What do you think?
Yes, there is, and I don't think that that's right. I think technology can have a political view, and in this case, uh, it's unprecedented, right? I think blockchain is an offshoot of the cypherpunk movement, and I think the cypherpunk movement had a political intent behind its code, and I think the blockchain has a political intent behind its code, and I think it's exactly that, right? We are looking to I don't know if anybody's ever seen the documentary "The Internet's Own Boy" about Aaron Swartz and how
No.
he was treated. There's this part where Larry Lessig, the Harvard law professor,
Mhm.
just talks about what it was that probably set the prosecutor off on Aaron in particular, and it was the fact that what he was doing, if he did it, right? If he went ahead and dropped all of those journal articles on the open web for free, um, that he had made the point of enforcing the law pointless at that point. He would have essentially destroyed the gatekeeping of all of those documents in one fell swoop, nullifying the law, right? And it's the fact that code can nullify the law. It's not that code is law, it's that code can break law permanently if done right. And I think that's what blockchain technology was designed to do.
Mhm.
And I think that's where a country can be proud of a thing that destroys its nation state when its nation state has gone out of control.
Yeah, yeah, and I've said that, in my opinion, blockchain technology generally uh, represents an encapsulation of liberty in software, right? And software is kind of the thing that it cuts through all the bullshit because you can automate things. So in automating things, you can make those things radically more efficient or effective, or fast, or all these other things that you can do with software that when you have a human system with paper and file cabinets, it's a different world, right?
Right.
And industries, and VCs, that they really took up on, oh my gosh, we should invest in this because we can totally revolutionize real estate and make billions. We can
Right.
do this and revolutionize communications and make billions. And when it came to the monetary, it scared the shit out of the banks because they've
been insulated from internet competition through a
Right.
clever use of lobbying, right? Like,
right.
They did not get digitized. They've been dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
And it's because people own and by the way, with Aaron Swartz, I mean, I guarantee to you that, and I don't understand that economy and how those papers are
It's
held.
ugly.
And
We publicly fund the research,
Yes.
and then the research gets freely given
Yes.
to
Yep.
journals that then gatekeep it and
Yep.
charge again for
And
access
charge, and
to
they
it,
make money.
even though the research was generated on public funds.
Yep. Those people have a lot of money from those public funding, right? They probably don't make a ton of money selling those papers when you go find a white paper and you have to pay for it.
It's gatekeeping purposes only. The point is universities should have access to them, but regular people
and
should.
It's hugely detrimental to science. Science right now, if you talk to the real scientists, they'll tell you most papers don't get peer reviewed because there's no time. People are working their own stuff. Who's going to peer review my paper? Nobody does. And
which is a free thing, by the way. They try to say that gatekeeping those journals helps fund peer review. It does not.
Bullshit. Yeah. And if they did, in fact, frankly, you could use blockchain to more properly do this and to open it up so that, anybody could peer review various papers, right? That's the way it should be. And there's a reward to it, right? And the world would be smarter.
But a bounty-based system would be ideal because somebody with interest would submit something and then they would get paid because they would give you something valuable.
All of that history would be on chain, so people could point back and say, that was my discovery, right?
Exactly.
Anyway.
Well, the example Aaron Swartz would always give was this kid in India who, read and had access to a particular science paper by happenstance.
Yeah.
And the science paper happened to do with treating cancer. And the kid came up with a tweak on the paper, found a flaw in it that corrected something fundamental about it that steered the researchers back in the right direction. And had that been gate kept properly and not reached his hands because he didn't pay for it, that kid would have never made that contribution. Like, it reminds me so much of, was it Alan Sharkey? His last name's Sharkey. I don't know if his first name's Alan, but he did this talk in 2006 on TED, which you can still look up, about institutions versus collaboration.
Wow.
And the idea that he conveyed was, Steve Ballmer making fun of open source, saying that this person, or these projects are still driven centrally by a core team of people who are likely paid. But then there's this one or two contributions. Well, one or two of these contributions in the case that he was talking about to Linux was a critical security patch. And the question isn't, would that person make a good employee because they only made one contribution and never again? It's, do you want that patch?
Yeah.
So open source software under Sharkey's mindset said, Ballmer should be fucking terrified of what this does to his market. We've seen that play out, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody uses Microsoft for servers. They use Linux.
Yes.
Right. And I think that is true of cross-state contributions more broadly. Right. Mm-hmm. Nations need to maybe gatekeep their borders, but they ought not be gatekeeping economic access to their markets.
And I would say because I've used Linux since '96, right? And in '96, I realized how different it was and how amazing it was. And I've used it on desktop, except for a window of a few years where I had Debian, or not Debian, I had BSD, OS 10 Mac.
Yeah.
And
Mac is a
anyway,
good proxy, a good substitute for
it is to some degree, but
if you
there's
were
a
willing
lot
to get
of
into the guts of it
jailing.
and customize it.
Yeah,
which has a lot more
still,
hurdles.
and what made me leave Mac and iPhone was when I realized at some point that some dead guy had more power over a device that I bought, paid for, owned, and used than I did. Then I was like, okay, why the hell does Steve Jobs, who's now dead, not want me to do this thing that I need to do with this device that I have, right? So
Yeah,
that's
what they
it.
really need is a toggle that jailbreaks the phone.
Yes, but here's the thing. I think the thing to look at, if you look at, okay, reality, all the servers, and I think what 99 something % of all sites on the internet are served by Linux, right? Linux is the most successful project probably in history for how fast it it's in this monitor that I'm looking at right now. It's running my TV, it's running my car. Think about the crazy stuff that Linux now does. It's amazing. And
I mean, then there's Tails, and that's making sure that people like Glenn Greenwald are still not in prison.
Yep. Well, and then if you look at it, people still use Windows and or Macs, right? So there's some degree there, but Mac's still a very small portion because it's too expensive. But the odd thing is, it's they've been able to hold that, and I would say mostly through propaganda, that they mostly make people think that Linux is too hard, or that Windows is just what a PC is. Just forget about it, right?
They desperately don't want people to learn how to use code like appliances.
Right. And I would say that's a very similar, I don't know what the numbers are, but I would bet that it's very similar to people who use crypto versus not, right? The people who don't use crypto is like, it's money. It's a dollar. It's money. That's all it is.
You raised an interesting point, though, about Jobs. If he were alive today, what do you think he would think of all this stuff? Because this guy drove around a 911 Carrera Porsche with no license plate because he refused to get it registered out of a desire to protect his own privacy.
Really?
It didn't really protect his privacy, because if you saw a Porsche driving around with no plates, you knew exactly who it was. But he had a penchant for parking in handicap spaces too, right? Yeah. So if you find that black 911 Carrera with the top down with no plates on it, you knew Steve Jobs was at the supermarket. But
Yep. I've met a couple of the Microsofts. I've met Ballmer, who I despised with a passion for Halloween papers and trying to destroy Linux when I was like,
that guy did bald guys a disservice, man.
Yeah. So whatever, Microsoft. So anyway, I don't know. I just, you have to think about it. Patriotism, maybe not. I mean, there is something there that if a country wanted to foster patriotism, blockchain would be a really good way to do it in their monetary system.
It would be.
Imagine if you were elected king of some island nation. It's poor, but it has some. It's recognized, right? It's not an unrecognized landmass. You have to worry about pirates or something.
Right, Palau, for example.
Exactly. If you were in a position, you could very easily institute, crypto's answer to CBDC. It's not a CBDC, but you can do things with crypto that you don't have to adopt Bitcoin or something that your island nation doesn't have enough money to get a big enough piece of right now. But if you said, look, we're going to issue our own currency, but it's going to be backed with Bitcoin, it's going to be backed with gold, it's going to be solid, and it's going to have a controlled inflation. You're going to see if we need to inflate, we can, but there will be some notice, and you have a vote on it, right? That type of thing. And that nation would become outrageously wealthy. Its citizens.
Well, I mean, and you wouldn't need inflation, right? Like you would never, you never need inflation.
Yes.
The only way that inflation can be done fairly is if you inflate the whole currency all at once, where everybody gets like a stock split in their currency. which
Yeah,
you
I'm
can
just
do on
saying,
chain.
as an engineer, I'm just saying, because I'm not an economist.
Oh, we
So
did. We
it's
built a token
possible.
called Embiggen early on in the Rivet days,
Yeah.
just for fun. It was a tabletop experiment that we used to shove trades onto 0x based exchanges. That we basically got the people tracking them to look like to register these trades and tokens that weren't supported, even though they weren't traded on those chains. We just modified the subtext of the order and submitted to the smart contract to make it look like it.
That's cool.
And it showed up on trackers as like someone exchanged not coin for Embiggen.
Oh wow!
Huh. And
that's cool.
It was like it was our little mischief. We also wrote a blog post and explained that in fact that didn't happen and said, haha, we got you. Here's a security hole. But
that's interesting. Well, and I know
Embiggen was inflationary. Every 10 minutes, the currency expanded,
really?
But everybody who held it got a proportional share.
So it was just, yeah, no,
it was mathematically valueless. It's how we avoided being called a security.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, I don't know. There are several things about that, how do I even say this? I mean, monetary policy, whatever it is, it can be modeled in blockchain really well. And at least you would have transparency. They don't want that in any of the current central banks, but the ability to censor payments or to not allow you to buy cigarettes or not allow you to buy liquor or something that we don't want you to buy is bad, right? And so I'm just saying, an island nation or any nation for that matter can set themselves up to be an extremely attractive place for people to immigrate if they just did certain things like that. And, I Am for I Am, talks about how IMF, deals with them.
They
with
do
loan threats.
This is their reaction to El Salvador.
Yeah. So it's crazy stuff. And then also, Steve Jobs bought a new car every quarter to avoid plates.
He did. That's fantastic. I love Steve, man. I know that a lot of people don't like what he built for a lot of valid reasons, but I love the man.
So, yeah. Okay, let's go next question. Let's see if it is an anonymous question.
Cool.
So, information and data is very hard to alter if written to a blockchain. Yes. Banks use KYC, know your customer. Should governments use KYI, know your immigrant? Then immigrants would present at the border their identification, retinal scan, DNA, or fingerprints that's been written to a blockchain in their origin country. Their ID then would be verified at the border. Now, criminals and terrorists are not going to subject themselves to this prior to entering the border, so it wouldn't work. Or maybe the immigrant, when entering their country, ID is written to a blockchain in the host country. That way, if they break the law, their ID is matched, and they could be deported or wherever else. Maybe this is too Orwellian. Borders are such a pain. So, what are your thoughts on Know Your Immigrant?
Yeah, I'm against this sort of thing. I think this is far too Orwellian. I want when we do have to have some kind of, if we do have to have some kind of on-chain identity, and I think that the desire to have that is overblown. It's a desire by people who want to import a lot of old economy models, like under collateralized loans and things like that. That the world now turns on, that it shouldn't turn on, right? These are artifacts of post 1913 decision making that exist only because we have an inflationary currency that's backed by nothing but debt. And I think that identity as a commodity can be handled a lot more simply through reputation. We only need reputation. We do not need consistent identities. Identities can be useful, right? It's useful to know that you're dealing with the person with said reputation. But if that person wants to abandon that identity and thus start with a fresh reputation, I think they should be perfectly permitted to do so.
Yep. The only reason I would use KYC or KYI, and we've had to in several systems that we built, is if there's a required integration with some other system. They're connected to a bank, so they have to have some aspect of KYC or otherwise. In every case, though, we've tried as much as possible to improve the state of the art there, where you can have KYC without giving those documents to the bank, right? Or they can point to some authority to meet the regulations, but that essentially you don't have a honeypot of a whole bunch of IDs sitting in a database somewhere that people are going to steal. You also don't have to trust a business as much with things that you don't want exposed, right? So various things like that. And I do also think that a much better approach, and this is what you were talking about, a much better approach is behavior-based reputation or behavior info to essentially give you a score, and when I say score, it's the business evaluating on their own. Do you care if this person has an account with some partner website, and if they can prove that, then they get so many points. So it would be a very customizable thing, but essentially a way to evaluate whether this person is real, whether they are legally using the site, that type of thing, right? And the less annoying it is, the more people will use it. So KYC is really kind of ridiculous. Especially think about what the change on crypto sites. I've not traded crypto in a long time, right? But I've been amazed when I've needed to get on there for records purposes, how some of the sites banned me, and they needed some type of KYC, and I go through the hoops literally dozens of times before they tell me, "Oh, we're not going to do business with you anymore." Right? And then I tell them, "Well, I need my freaking records still. That's why I wanted to sign in." So then they give me a link to get my records. Just like, you could have done that months ago. I didn't fucking need to sign in and trade.
Right. So I just I took the liberty of pasting into the comments of this video the text of the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto by Timothy C. May.
Nice.
Where he actually talks about reputation and trust.
Yes.
He said, reputations will be of central importance, far more important in dealings than even the credit ratings of today. These developments will alter completely the nature of government regulation, the ability to tax and control economic interactions, the ability to keep information secret, and will even alter the nature of trust and reputation. It'll, if you read the whole thing in sum, it divorces reputation from identity, is the idea. And that we shouldn't necessarily shy away from what that means to the systems that currently govern the world.
Yeah, I agree. So, and Dave, let's see, Dave answers streamlined, efficient process for travel, right? Yeah, the way all that stuff is, it kind of blows my mind sometimes that it's still as old seeming as it is. I would have expected, even with governments, I don't know. It's kind of crazy that some of the laws are in place the way they are, but whatever. Okay, do we have one more? Do we have another question?
Let's take a look.
I am for am. All right. So for blockchain to be a solution for economic migration, implies that one's home country improve its own economic situation to slow loss of population for migration. In other words, and it might be brain and not even flesh, but to adopt blockchain tech to create better opportunities within their own country. That's what I was hoping that the U.S. would have done all those years ago when I actually sat down and we had a lobbyist that he had his own lobby firm. He used to work for a big place, and he had reached out on Reddit to small businesses if they had any reason, especially tech. He was interested in tech, right? And so he took us in there, and we went around the Senate office building and the House. I can't remember what buildings they are, but that we got to meet with a good few representatives, and we got to sit down with a couple of them that were hostile to Bitcoin at the time, right? And so, we made kind of a how do you say this? Like we made the offer that we would present ourselves as technical advisors for them even, and some of them took us up on it, and it helped that they actually would call us. It's like, what do you think about this? And we would give them what we knew, which was super interesting because they weren't getting it from anywhere else. And immigration was one of the points, tech and immigration, because Microsoft and Oracle and all these big firms really want to bring people in, and it's not because they love people from these various other countries. It is nothing at all. That's the way they sell it.
It's weaponized brain drain is what it is.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, to essentially depress what were growing wages in in their tech people. So
the surest way to depress wages in India is to take all of their PhDs and bring them to the United States.
Yeah. And it was interesting because, well, and in the US, it's because Oracle, and Microsoft, they knew engineers were expensive, and so they had to cut that by bringing in people that will work for far less. That was the huge thing.
Right.
And,
this is the sick calculus. That's the other thing about immigration policy. It's a sick calculus. It's broken. It's nauseating to me to think about people in categorical lists of numbers like that. That to me is inimical to humanism.
It's disgusting. So anyway, so that's what they do. And how do I say this? If you are like we said before, if you're attracting the ideas and the minds, you're going to do better. And the problem is our representative government. Suppose it doesn't really represent us.
Our non-representative
the lobbies hold way too much power, and the whole thing is broken. And so we're not getting what any of us want.
Well, I mean, bear in mind, we do not live in a free world right now, right? I mean, we literally have banana republic tactics being deployed in our very own country in advance of the next so-called free election right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is where we live. We live in a world where, right now, if you want to call it the long silent war between the establishment and the cypherpunks, we're losing.
Yep.
We are on the fucking ropes right now.
I think I missed the question though. So the main question, having laid that out, is how do second and third tier countries, let's say, categorize.
So second and third tier countries like the United States.
How do they improve and increase blockchain opportunities to keep their own populations from migrating away? So, I have a couple answers to that. So
I think the answer is very straightforward. I think we need decentralization maxis in our governments. I think we need to be using our propaganda engines to tell people that the way that they will be helped is by helping themselves, by learning this, by focusing on this. Check out this project. Go build on this thing. It's not that hard to learn. Stop telling people that they need government help and start telling people how they can help themselves.
Well, guess what? And I think sometimes the blockchain tribalism works heavily against us because there have been opportunities that haven't really gone anywhere, and or some of them are undecided.
I mean, imagine how much intake our industry would have, how much adoption and how much new development would happen if instead of CNN fucking parroting all the bullshit that they parrot and MSNBC talking about why we need to send all your tax dollars to the Ukraine in the form of cluster bombs. Like if we had them out there saying, you guys need to learn how to build this. You guys need to focus on this. Look at this project. Look at this thing. Look at what we could do. If they were using that same fucking bullhorn, that my favorite meme to represent this is like the person backed up against the wall with a sousaphone shoved in their face.
Yes. Yeah.
If we had that going on with our propaganda engine instead of what we're using it for, we would see a lot more push. Yes, and Fox. Yeah, IM pointed out Fox is just as bad, and they are.
Yep. Yep.
And I think that's why they want to shut down, X, and why they don't like Tucker Carlson, and why they especially dislike Glenn Greenwald. These people saying, the people who are pretending to help you are lying to you to help themselves.
Yeah.
So we need that voice out there.
Yeah.
We need that voice to be a mass voice.
And you think about it, increasing blockchain opportunities. So there are obviously some fundamental things, like say a second or third tier country. They might be able to leapfrog more quote unquote developed countries because they are smaller and can do some things more readily. Including, so the fundamental things would be financial. It would be very smart if you were to establish something that would be such a solid base that you would have extreme strength and wealth, right? The nation level, right? The next would be governance. So these are still not opportunity based, but if you had governance where the voting, whether it's electing a representative or voting on an issue, is sacrosanct, that everyone would be able to independently prove that it was not BS, it wasn't fixed, right? Those two things fundamental. But you're just talking about opportunity wise. It would be, you imagine, and there's several. We had several ideas, and there are others who have had several ideas on saying, okay, here is the structure that these projects should have to follow, and it can be very work through essentially milestones, on a project, to make sure it's a legitimate project, and it's not the government deciding it. It would be a community decision, but it would have to follow through, so that if you really want to protect, if you want to assume that you need to protect dumb investors, then this is at least an organic way to do it that helps everyone. It even helps the people that are smart. By not,
the market is its own gatekeeper if you let it be.
Yeah. So if exactly, and that's maybe the better, if you have gatekeeping through it, it would be for a nation to institute one of these systems and allow projects to come in with utility tokens, establish themselves, roll out real utility, and create real wealth. There would be measurable wealth that is tokenized. And if they did that, I think that, if Dubai did that, or if some small island nation did that, or if some small European nation did that, Liechtenstein or something, trillions of dollars would flow in. That is where the real opportunity is. And, the U.S. has tried to stamp it out.
Well, I mean, and every one of these nations needs to do two things too, to their code and regulatory registers. They need to do a hard find and replace on all of the NGOs where if an NGO is mentioned as integrated into the country's law, they should replace all of that text with section repealed. And then the other thing that they need to do is they need to do the same thing with legal tender. They need to repeal legal tender laws, because then people will have no intervention from the government with respect to how they can settle debts. And as soon as we have that, in place in a country, it becomes free in terms of economics. But you won't be able to get that if the IMF has any sway, or the Bank of the BIS. Like, they need to be completely excised from your country. And we won't get that if there are legal tender laws, even if the legal tender law says any of these currencies and includes one token. El Salvador is not doing it right, because Ether is excluded, and because Avalanche is excluded, and because XRP is excluded. Like, any of these legal tender laws that says you must accept in exchange for settlement of debt these forms of currency, they need to get rid of those.
Yeah,
because
that's why
that's
the
the
whole
only way you can have an open competition and exchange of value.
Yep, that's why the whole El Salvadoran thing, I was disappointed that it
Yeah.
was so maximalist focused, and they had all these guys come down that were just like, oh yeah, Bitcoin, and we need to put a miner in the volcano. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
It's
Come on.
neat,
Yeah.
but they could have written it so that and all this other stuff was happening.
Yes, and I will tell you that people generally, and I'm not saying any of them are, how do I even say this without being insulting? People fall short often, right? I remember we did, as an example, a tremendous amount of effort at the FBI to get Linux in as the software, as the server OS, right?
Yeah.
A huge feat. I was on the team that did that. We had a lot of brilliant people on it, and we actually made it happen.
Yeah,
And
it's really hard to get governments off of that stuff because they have a
Yes.
lot of high placed technocrats who are
Yes.
highly certified in Microsoft Server.
And even more so, they have a lot of people like our biggest, I think our biggest competitors for Linux then that we had to contend with were Solaris, HPUX, IRIX. The
Solaris wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't, but it's gone now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or at least I think you might still be able to
I mean, at least it was Nixie, right?
And it was nothing near as good as Linux, right?
Oh,
And
it wasn't.
what we were
Right.
trying to push was Linux, so that we have a choice as the architects. When something comes in, there might be a case that we need Debian, or there might be a case where we need what was it, white hat?
Yeah,
I can't remember. That
or if your user base is full of Mac lovers, you might even need Pear. Who knows?
Well, guess what we got? We got Red Hat Linux, which is like, okay, I'm okay with
it's
that.
all right.
Why? And that just pigeonholes us.
Governments need a
licensing
contractor to
stuff.
blame when something doesn't work right.
Yeah, which I'm fine with on a pure level, but at an architecture level, it should be,
Right.
If you need that on your project to have support, then you'll have to go to this group or that.
Red
group.
Hat does lock your DevOps into a waterfall model, though.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I don't know. Anyway, it's the same thing, and I think that's what we saw in El Salvador, where it was like, guys, come on. I mean, everything not everything they did was awesome in some way, right? And the fact that they did it, but the fact that they just closed it off on saying, oh, it's Bitcoin. I'm like,
right.
Okay.
And it's similar. It's similar to getting Red Hat, and then you're stuck with like, well, this year our whole project is to update the Node.js version.
Yeah, and I've heard stories that there have been issues because of Lightning Network and the fact that Bitcoin's not scalable. That a lot of locals are like, what the hell is this shit? I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And most of them is like, oh, they got their $30 or whatever it was in Bitcoin and immediately, cashed it out because it's like they don't want to deal with that crap. So it could have been much better, right? And so I'm just thinking, okay.
Dave put a comment in that Solaris is still used in some military applications. So you do have to caveat what you said with you don't have any control over what the Pentagon does at the FBI.
Yes. Well, and it's the same thing. I mean, it's like Windows NT is still, I think, used in some Navy vessels, right? So, which I get stuck at port, or in the past have gotten stuck at port because of blue screen of death.
The blue screen of death
on your freaking carrier. I'm like, oh my god!
It's like doubles the meaning of degaussing. It's got like a weird Philadelphia experiment side effect, along with all the monitors need it too.
Man, yeah, I at least hope they aren't running the weapon systems with NT.
Yeah. Oh no shit. No shit.
Anyway,
it's the cluster bomb OS.
Ridiculous. Okay, is that the last question? We're past the hour, so we can flip over. We can do whatever.
Current events.
Yes, any current events, man. And I don't know if you want to categorize them by good and bad current events.
Well, I've been kind of taking a little bit of a news holiday, so maybe we should pop open. Maybe we should pop open Zero Hedge and see what's at the top.
Let's look at it.
I do know that Victoria Newland has been, unfortunately, news featured lately as likely to be the next, if in fact the King Moron is reelected.
Oh God,
the-
reelected.
yeah,
Okay, I don't know. Are those the headlines?
we're gonna get
'Cause,
her as the Secretary of State.
geopolitics, the anti-gold BRICS push. Does a BRICS gold currency really matter? I'm rooting for gold to go to zero.
We hit the menu at the very top. Let's get the current as to current events and hit latest. Where is it? I'm used to the mobile view.
I don't see it.
Okay, I think this is the latest right here.
Yeah. Anyway, Hunter Biden
CC'd
CC'd on the call with then VP Joe and former Ukraine president.
Yep. So corruption, yes.
Hawaii, Maui. That's some horrible stuff going on there.
Revered water.
What?
That's weird.
Stalled release of revered water until it was too late. There was holy water that they didn't want it to be used on. I'd heard that, I don't know if it's true. I'd heard that there were some development plans that were being stalled because homeowners, locals, Hawaiians would not sell their land, and now all of a sudden it's all burned. So maybe they're all going to move off now. Let's burn now. You want to move, don't you? Horrible.
So is there an acronym for Make Bud Light Great Again? Mabulga, maybe? That doesn't sound right.
I don't think I think a better reason than Meta or X would be a rebrand for them.
Oh, right? God.
Jeez.
They just need to ditch the whole light thing and just go back to Budweiser. I think that's their biggest hope.
I would never drink Bud. I drank it like once or twice.
Oh yeah, no, I mean like they would have to retire the classic Budweiser and just make Bud Light Budweiser and just call it that.
Yeah.
Right. To me, that's the only way you save the brand.
Yeah, they could put the Clydesdales on the can. Probably make.
Yeah, they could call it Budweiser Classic. It'd be like Heath Classic, but they definitely faced a Dow crisis.
And it's owned by the Belgians since a while now, probably like 8 years or maybe longer. They bought it a while back, which is like, they have all these good Belgian, well, at least reasonably good Belgian brands. I don't remember all they own, but it's a Belgian beer company, which Belgian beer is the best beer. It's freaking amazing.
Can we put up Dave's Bud Right to win back the political?
It's not going to work.
That's funny. I like it. I'm not one because it tastes like piss, but
yeah, I've never liked it. It's horrible. I would never drink it. Right. Yeah. So
I think they should just rebrand it Pawtucket Pat's Patriot Ale.
Yeah.
Just take it straight from Family Guy.
Yeah, I still don't think it work. I think they just need to go under. They just need to close down, whatever.
Do you think this season of Family Guy is going to have that same thing happen to Pawtucket Pat's Brewery?
I don't watch Family Guy. Thankfully, I watched way back. Yeah, there was some funny stuff, but I was just like, I don't know what it is. I wouldn't be able to tell you why, but I just don't like it. So I also don't watch what's Rick and Morty. I can't stand Rick.
I can't stand that one either. I'm not a big fan.
And it's like, I've always tried to be polite when people are trying to tell me something about how funny it is, but I've never thought it was funny. I'm a Venture Brothers guy. If you've ever watched Venture Brothers,
the scientist was pictured way too like. First off, yes, this is a ripoff of Back to the Future. Let's be frank. This is Doc Brown and Marty McFly.
Yeah.
Right. The Doc Brown character gets unfair treatment, I think, in Rick and Morty.
Really?
Yeah, they make people who are keen to use technology to change things look like salivating morons.
That's weird. That's weird that the people that like it based upon that. Actually,
well, I mean, it's good satire in one sense. I mean, it's very meme culture-y, right? Like you can understand why people like it, and I'm sure that if I got into it, I would probably dig it, but just haven't done that to myself.
I'm going to vote to ban all Rick and Morty memes from any future broadcast of WDRT. All right.
So. If I wasn't blanket against blanket bans, I would be with you.
Yes, that's a good point. You have a good point there. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like, there's Maui, there's BRICS stuff. I mean, BRICS is looking like, even a lot of people admitting now the dollar is not set for a good future. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is it? I just saw that credit card debt, consumer credit card debt in America has surpassed 1 trillion.
Mhm.
It probably did before, but it's definitely past it now. And there was something else. I mean, it's just and so many absurdities going on with the money right now that it's just I have no earthly idea how long it takes for all of the negatives to funnel into the economy and start affecting people, real people in their houses.
Right. Well,
But
that's the monstrosity of the Cantillon effect, right? Like
yeah,
it's unknowable.
yeah,
It's like sort of like a game of dominoes where the dominoes are, or a game of domino rally where the dominoes are different sizes. Like you
yep,
tip one over, and it goes fast if they're small and close, and it goes slow if they're big and heavy. But ultimately, the Rube Goldberg machine ends up screwing everybody.
yep, except for certain people.
Well, except for the people who tip the dominoes.
Yeah,
Right, because they move their money right before they hit the first one.
they all know. They all know when it's happening. They call you
Right.
everybody up.
Exactly. It's just like insider trading.
just-
Oh, that's an interesting piece of current events that has happened since I was last
what's
on.
that?
The law that was there to make it so that insider trading was outlawed in Congress in the U.S.
Oh yeah.
Has not made it onto the legislative calendar this session. It was on a fast track, and then it just got tabled. So
Imagine that.
So imagine that we're going to have insider trading continue. Surprise!
Man,
Surprise!
is
Who saw that coming? Everyone.
I'm going to let's see here. I'm going to where is it?
No, the interesting thing though is Liz Warren behind that law
Mhm.
was like big harping on it, like, yeah, we need this, blah blah blah. This is corruption. She's a big voice against allowing it to slide for another session, blah blah blah. Well, her version of it
Mhm.
actually allows the legislators to offload their portfolios, because the law would basically say they can't hold stock. They get to offload their portfolios at a set, very friendly rate, very friendly rate,
Letting that roll. Really?
into U.S. bonds. So what does that mean? That means the taxpayer is going to pay them for their stock.
Yeah, and that's why 401ks exist too. So that
Right.
they, it's like, oh, we're gonna pump everything. Okay, so while those roll, this is an experiment, and they're running way too fast. I swear I had it on here the other day where it was running at a much slow rate. But anyway.
Oh my God, I forgot about all these things.
Banker hours. I don't know if there's anything else going on in the world other than all the bad things.
Potlucks suck. You know what I hated most about my last office job?
What was that?
So much so that I cell phones off. That never happened to me, luckily. But there was like an office fridge that everybody could like bring food to a snack table, and then the snack table would get stored, and everybody had to sign up for fridge cleaning duty. And I made a point of never eating anything at work ever. Nobody saw me eating anything because I didn't. And yet I still got shit for not signing up to clean the fridge.
That's ridiculous. You just say, I don't use it.
It's like, I'm literally avoiding fridge duty. I'm not going to eat. That's what I told them. I was like, no, I'm not doing fridge duty. I'm not eating.
That's awesome.
I'm not part of the problem. You don't need me as part of your solution.
In fact, I want a stipend on my paycheck because I don't use that refrigerator, which costs us however much a month, right?
Right. And that's actually kind of one of the beauties of blockchain, right? You can actually parse that.
Yes. That's waste. Everything should be. So let's see here. Is there anything else we want to? I need to figure out how to run this slower because it is way too fast.
We're dancing around a pretty big elephant in the room, right? With respect to current events.
Which one?
You know, that guy who's getting indicted.
Oh, Trump, of course. I don't know. That's like an ongoing. That's almost a current thing, right?
Yeah.
Not quite.
This is a litmus test, I think, for our country. I am said, will Trump wear orange? And I'm thinking that if he does, then our country is a certain way. And if he doesn't, then our country is another way. I'd like to hope that he will not. I'd like to hope that our justice system will prevail.
Yes.
You know, that the one part of our country that hasn't yet been corrupted is the court system. And there's some strong positive signs there, right? Like we have the Missouri litigation against censorship. We have, sort of the stuffing they gave the last couple of indictments. I think the earliest one has been stuffed already, pretty much. Like the court system is on. I don't know if it's officially gone yet, but I know it's not going well for the prosecution. That duck is jacking off. That was gross and also distracting.
I don't know. I don't know that the court system isn't compromised. I think it's maybe compromised in different ways. And hopefully some parts of it aren't compromised.
Yeah.
But
well, the system that I was trained in, I have a lot of faith in, right? Like we have the XRP litigation too. That's the other positive side, right? Like if the state from the court side was as corrupt as the rest of it, there's no way XRP would have won.
Yes, I agree. Something's that was by the way, for me, even a huge point, related to, is Dragon Chain winnable? What we're up against, right? So the fact that they did points to at least some semblance of honor still remaining.
Right.
So
on the back of that ruling alone, you guys probably actually have access to bridge capital now that you didn't before.
You mean after?
If you wanted to right now go out and find someone to keep you funded through the rest of the litigation, you probably could find someone.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we've spoken to some groups, and too many of them try to use it against you. It's like, you have the SEC, so it's
right. They'll probably take their percentage, right? It's going to be expensive capital, but
yeah. I don't know. I've been surprised, and I've been surprised since the beginning. We have some type of black mark on us, some type of scarlet letter embedded in us somehow. That
if you guys wanted to fix it, you have to turn off your anonymous comments on Den.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's one of those things where it's something. That one right there is pretty disturbing, but amazing.
I am also asked about free speech and reach, which is the one I want to hit before we call.
Oh yeah, we should hit that one. I answered that on the AMA this morning, and I mean, what are your thoughts there? I have no earthly idea how this CEO is making remarks like that without being, maybe
it's hard. It's hard to say very specifically, right, about what's going on at X, because ultimately that CEO is a figurehead, right? Elon Musk still reads every commit into the code base, and so nothing goes in without his okay. And he's also still the chairman of the board. So if the CEO oversteps her bounds, then she gets stuffed, right? So the question is, but at the same time, like Elon Musk himself came out early on in Twitter takeover days and said he was okay with the concept of free reach not being the same thing as free speech.
Yeah, he did.
And I think that's insane. Like, I think that's asinine, right? Aaron Swartz in 2013 said something along the lines of, the question for the internet isn't, who gets to speak. Everybody can speak, right? Everyone can have a channel of their own. The question is who gets heard. And in that sense, if the Constitution had been written in 2023, that the founding fathers would have said that free speech and free reach were inseparable. It would have been somewhere between speech and association.
And and you can make a case that was like, oh, it's our platform, and we're not gonna, here's how, here's the algorithm,
Right.
But the problem is they're saying both. They're saying, oh, we're all about free speech and you shouldn't do this or that, but we're still going to ban Alex Jones because he made a claim that has to do with children.
Yeah.
It's like,
And
well,
to
wait a
me,
minute. What about the claim? Is the claim legit or not?
to me, if we wanted to turn X into an insanely profitable company and also fix the problem all at once, you would do the following. You would say, we're not calling it advertising anymore. We're calling it reach. And everybody can buy it in a microtransaction. You want the whole world to see this? That'll be $5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no joke. I mean, it's like there's some things, people post that like it's not important, but some others that it's like, sure, I want more people to see it.
I wouldn't make every one of my tweets forced upon everyone's screen, but some of them I would pay $5 to ensure everyone had to scroll past it.
Yes. Yep.
And I can't think of anybody who wouldn't. And if we gave everyone that capacity, especially if we gave everyone that capacity in any currency, including cryptocurrency, you would have a powerhouse of a system. That's why I like the boost feature on Den. It's not gate kept.
Right. Exactly. There's no human that from the company.
Yeah.
There's no human that says, "Oh, you can't pay for that."
Obviously, if people like it, you pay less. But
yes, and it has, and the actual exposure has less effect. I mean, no matter how much you pay, if it performs poorly in evaluation, it's going to drop off.
Yeah. Now, something I haven't tried. Does boosting plus anonymity work together?
Oh yeah, you can boost any post. So
cool. And that's something that's amazing. That's an amazing
power. I don't know if we've experimented with it because I
can you imagine what would happen if X implemented the same system?
Yeah. We've talked to him about prior to Musk being there. We talked to him about various things, and they did not get it. And it wasn't like they got it and said, "Oh no, that doesn't fit." It's that they
didn't understand.
It blew my mind. It's like, this is a freaking top funded freaking social network in San Francisco of all places, and I'm telling them tech concepts, and the freaking they don't understand them. They don't understand how they relate to what they're doing. And I'm like, that's because the people that were there, like I would say a lot of them were, and not precisely this, I have no measure or evidence of this, but they are the types of people that were more likely to be political science graduates coming in than engineering. And so you had a ton of that crowd running this net when they didn't freaking understand even what they were supposed to be doing, let alone what they could do. So crazy.
Well, and I think there's something really unique about this conundrum, right? This whole idea of reach being separate from speech. It flies in the face of something very special to John Stuart Mill's thinking, which I think is the right kind of paradigm for free speech, right? Like all of the Enlightenment thinkers who talked about it, he got it right. Because he said that we had to go beyond tolerance, right? We had to go beyond tolerance. We had to create a special space for speech that was not heterodox, right? Like, or for speech that was heterodox, right? For ideas that were alien, for challenging concepts, for things that went against the grain. If we didn't give those things special purview, if we didn't say outlandish ideas deserve to be especially paid attention to, then we hurt the human project, the humanist project, right? Ultimately, society cannot get better if those who are challenging it cannot be heard. And ultimately, that's the kind of system that we need to find a way to facilitate. We need a special place for reach that says, every idea not only gets to exist, but every idea gets to be heard at least once.
Well, and that's the thing. I think, in my opinion, to do it right, it needs to be voluntary. So, you might, and I would say the people, if it were my design, the people on X, on Twitter, would be able to filter out, and let's say you had a tag system like we do on DIN, where it's community
But you should always be able to click over to the unfiltered tab.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe the app should launch on that one.
Exactly. And the funny thing is, because if you had community tagging stuff and it's like, oh, that's racist, that's anti-Semitic, oh, that is anti-tech, that this is anti-blockchain, oh, this is maximalist.
Yeah.
You would then be able to say, okay, I maybe I don't want to see the racist stuff, or maybe on a particular day I don't want to see stuff that is negative or has any violence.
And filtering has its place, right? But at the same time, if you have an automated filter designed to catch terms that are associated with racist comments, what if somebody said something profoundly anti-racist that you're missing?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I would think the tags would be
right, and that's why even if it
based.
doesn't open up on the unfiltered tab, you should get a prompt every once in a while that says, "Hey, you've been spending a lot of time in your filter bubble. Would you like to check out what the whole world is saying?"
True. Because I know, and I'll tell you, and there's a thing on, like, say, 4chan, where it's basically a meme itself that it's people go. I myself went there, and I was like, man, this is crazy.
There's a lot of garbage and a lot of shit that makes you sick to your stomach. But
yeah, the majority of stuff I would see, I didn't agree with. But at the same time, it was enlightening because I'm like, oh, what do they mean, right? And I want to understand more. Why would somebody say that? That's something I think is crazy.
Right. To read an idea is not to accept it, but to read an idea is to know that that idea has been had recently.
Yeah. And my, I think my a lot of, and I'm not saying that I'm good at it, but a lot of my role in the world personally is to try to freaking understand the world. And I, being on 4chan for several years made me, at first I thought it was crazy. And then I realized, oh shit, I never understood that. I thought it was this. And now I see it's this. I'm like, wait a minute. And, I delve into it and you say, do I really believe this? And like, well, it appears to be the case, and you think about whether it's the COVID vaccine stuff or various things with monetary policy, that those things, and when I say like monetary policy, it's
surprising how
dry,
often the dissenting view has a good point.
Yes, well, I've seen some stuff that I generally thought, being a Bitcoin person and crypto person, is like, okay, central bank bad, they're doing bad things. I had no freaking clue how naked shorts work, how some of the actual ways that the banks do what they do really happen. And being on 4chan gave me info that Facebook you would never get, Twitter you would never get, even in Telegram you would never get. And so it's an interesting
thing.
People
don't have any concept of shadow banking.
And yet 4chan, the biggest issue with it is all of the bullshit and noise. There's so much noise by bots and literally by nation state intel to try to screw stuff up, and to plant false,
but it does inculcate an appropriate understanding of exactly how much you can trust about what you read.
Yes, but the problem with it is that stuff being there's no measured way transparently to filter it, to say okay, because here's the thing,
not without sacrificing the most important part of it.
Yeah, you can look at a thread, and a lot of times when I'm like, it's maybe some subject I'm not well versed in, and I was like, wait a minute, they say something that's interesting, so I go and look at it, and then enough people will say this BS, it's whatever, and you get a feel for a consensus, but you never really have a way to save the time from ever going into there. And so what you need, frankly, is something like Den with enough volume, because with Den with anonymity and with identity both, you could have a platform. Now we need filtering on tags,
and if your data is self-sovereign to your reputation, the reputation of your current identity, then when that identity comments, it ostensibly has more weight, for example, and that was an esoteric setting for. Let me try to simplify that. For example, if you have read every article that exists on iOS's next release, and you jump into a conversation with somebody who has read no articles about it except for one from the Macalope, and you want to be critical of it, and the Macalope guy is defending the release, right? Your view has more weight because you've experienced more information, ostensibly, right? But maybe it doesn't, because maybe for all we know, the Macalope guy also works in Apple engineering and just can't tell you, right? And maybe he sees that the critique is unfair.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to use metrics and filtering systems to get to the truth, right? We just have to wade through a whole bunch of stuff that may or may not be true and make up our own damn minds.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that people want to solve with technology that they can't.
I don't know. I still think that there are tools, though, because
there are tools, right?
You'll never, people who approach it from that angle will try to employ AI to, okay, tell me what's right and what's wrong.
Right.
And we had several groups coming to us. Oddly enough, they all had 3-letter funding. All of them that we talked to who wanted to end fake news. And we're like, well, how do you want to end fake news? It's like, well, we want an off button. It's like, well, if I can already do that. You already own Twitter. You already own Facebook. You already have that, right? And so, but they wanted
the problem.
Yeah, the real translation is we want to create something that has AI in it so we can sell it to the government to then employ it at one of these, at Twitter or Facebook, right? And we're like, well, we already have it. Look at them. We already have it. And it essentially measures the consent, because in time, if you go on an organic system, in time, 4chan will come to consensus in a very ugly, long-term way that you can't, like, say, come as a new person and say, okay, what do you guys think about X subject?
Right.
Because you have to have, well, where have you been? You have to lurk.
Right. You'll get a whole bunch of references to old threads that you have to start reading from 5 years ago.
And they will literally say, lurk more. You have to just hang out and you'll get what the consensus is, right?
Right. Exactly. And because
if
we take the time to explain it, we'll spend all our time explaining
it. It's extremely hard as a tool. It's a great thing as a tool for those of us who want to spend the time whiling away the hours in the middle of the night reading 4chan threads when they're interesting. But
if you don't want to spend the time, you're a responsible speaker, I guess, is the point.
Yeah, and what we really need as citizens to fix the mess we're in is a tool that will let you go in and evaluate the things you know and competitively come to consensus with the others that know about that subject. And let me on other things, and you benefit from me doing that over here, and I benefit, and now I can learn a little more, and I can delve in to the points that are against consensus. Maybe consensus is currently wrong. You have Overton Windows stuff. You have all those things that over time people realize, oh shit, that was wrong what we did.
Right.
But that's what's needed. And, the fact that we can put it on chain so that proof can be there, that here is the content, here's what it was, here's what was, conversation about it. It could then make it so I could, I could then.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the other important thing about anonymity too, right? Is like it depersonalizes ideas. Because one thing that I think people have a big problem with is personalizing the concepts, right? Like when you have an idea that you defend, there's a truth element and then there's a tribe element to it, right? And after a while, the tribe element becomes more important to you, right?
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
you can start off being stunned by Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, right? Just blown away by the ideas in it. But by the time you've had 3 debates about it online with someone who doesn't agree, and you see all your pals who also have read it and have also been stunned by it jumping into your defense, all of a sudden the party line matters a lot more to you than convincing other people of the astounding revelations that made you change your ideas, right? Like anonymity depersonalizes it. It means that you don't have to worry about getting too heterodox for the comfort of your tribe.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that we would, I think we can lose in a censorship and reach oriented. Like if your reach is based on your reputation, what if you want to say something divergent from what you've been talking about? You risk your entire rep.
People won't, because they know, just like now, you can't say certain things without getting some social impact, right? So why would I want to stir up drama? I'm just not going to say that thing that I think is true, right?
Right. So reach ultimately, I think, to come back to the long arc of this question, reach ultimately is the equality of opportunity in speech. You know, if you want to have true free speech, in the sense that the system of sharing ideas freely on an open market works to better society, then you have to have equal opportunity to reach. Now, it doesn't have to be free. You can charge for it, but everyone needs to be allowed to buy it.
Yeah. And here's the thing I would say about it. I think it's less a question of, constitutional free speech, because it is a commercial org. The question becomes, for the shareholders, frankly, your CEO is effectively saying that our platform is going to be less good than it could be, right?
That can't be right about, is that Morocco down there with Ooga Booga?
I do not know. I do not know. I do not know. I do not know.
I think that's the joke hidden in this meme.
It probably is. I'm not going to make any comment though. But yeah, that essentially, they're going to make it a worse platform if they have this concept of reach being controlled, because it's like, why the hell would I pay?
Sorry.
Why would I pay for? Sorry, some of these might be offensive memes. I make apologies up front. But
terrifying slave owner.
Yeah, one way or another. Oh, the Napoleon movie with what's his name? The actor that played Joker. I want to see it just because of that, but
oh yeah.
What's his freaking name? Anyway, I can't remember his name.
I keep wanting to say Heath Ledger, even though I know that's not possible.
No.
Actually, wait, it technically probably is possible.
God,
you think they're going to resurrect him?
Totally blanking on it. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I just think that Twitter is going to end up with a much worse platform if they don't actually respect some semblance of letting it be free speech, right? Yeah. I mean, here's the other thing that's so horrible about the whole conversation. They're literally talking about, these horrible ideas, so their CEO is talking about horrible ideas that she doesn't want to give reach to. I don't know what they are. Maybe she would think they're racist. Maybe she thinks they're anti-Semitic. Maybe she thinks they're anti-government.
Well, I mean,
right? But
the problem that I have with their metric is the one that is very nebulous. Like, they have ones that are associated with hate speech, like, and like, if we want to ban all tweets that say I'm a fan of the Ku Klux Klan, and that's all it says, with no context. I mean, first off, you can still come up with a context in which that was sarcastic, right? Which is making that speech the exact opposite of what you just filtered out, which sucks, right? Anybody who wants to say that in response to somebody who's actually defending the Klan in a more subtle way, and you're calling them out, right? Like, you've gone counter to your purpose, right? You just defended hate speech in your anti-hate speech policy. But setting that aside, they have one category that's like having a tendency to cause division. Isn't that everything serious that matters?
That's anything that you should want to have on a social platform, right?
Right. Like, do we really want to vapidify the thing for the sake of
and that's why I was saying, who's deciding what's awful? Is Linda deciding what's awful? Right. Because guess what?
Well, I know for a fact that they deboost any discussion of Assange.
Under Jack, there were multiple cases, and it wasn't like, here's one and here's another. There were multiple, I say thousands of cases. There were, how do I say this? Child porn on Twitter.
Yeah.
Directly open, public.
They weren't even filtering it.
Not filtered. And when it was reported, the reporters were banned. Yeah. And accounts remained. And some of them were using like different language tricks and stuff like that so that they could get past the filter supposedly. But when they were pointed out, they still weren't banned. And so you're talking about, okay, we're not going to let that in, but Alex Jones is going to get banned because he talked about whether or not a school shooting was real or not, right?
Right.
Like, come
Right,
on,
the
you
crisis
call him
after
crazy or not, but why would you
that was
ban
such
someone?
a freaking op. That wasn't even that offensive.
Yeah, well, why would you ban somebody for that or for saying some
Yeah,
idea?
just prove them wrong.
It's
I
exactly.
mean, it was
If
provably
it's
wrong.
that's why
It was a provably wrong thing Alex Jones said. Yes, maybe offensive to some people, but like, for fuck's sake, so obviously false. Who would believe that?
yeah, well, and
Right.
that's why. Why do you censor stuff that is provably not true? And that's the answer to fake news. Like, people are smart enough if you let them see information. So if the information is
Right.
there, let them see it.
Yeah, and then read the thousands of replies going, "You moron."
Mhm.
Right? Like, because that's the key.
Yep.
It's the fact that everybody that knows will follow up with like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
I'm almost to the point where anything that is censored, I'm just going to automatically, dogmatically assume that it's correct. If it's censored,
I
I have to
start
assume
from
it's real.
censored topics for research. Like if I'm looking for
Yeah.
something new
Totally.
to understand, I look at censored topics and then I look for the heterodox view.
Yep. Okay.
But real quick, I wanted to share this with you because I think I figured out at least one of the things that they block.
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen here because
Right
I got this freaking
Right
thing
on.
pinned at the very top, and it's remarkable. This was here. Let me actually hit the share button. Present. Share screen. Don't show these tips again, please. Share screen. Hit the share button again, and we're sharing. So check this out. I wrote this. I mean, this is a long form post, right? I juiced it with memes so that it would definitely get coverage. Mm-hmm. And I said this. Said this on August 3rd.
Okay.
As of today, I've had 24 engagements, 254 impressions, 2 profile visits, 16 detail expands. This is substantially underperforming most of the other things that I was posting until I posted this.
Mm-hmm.
Since I posted this, everything else that I've said has conformed to this performance.
Really?
And in the meantime, they have pinioned the likelihood that you'll, or the ability to get on their subscription plan, like to let people subscribe to your feed, on whether or not you have a certain amount of impressions over 3 months. So think about this. Put market down pressure on the sharing of certain views because you won't give them impressions. And then you condition whether or not you have access to paid Twitter on how many impressions you've had over a 3-month period. What's that going to do to topics that are disfavored?
Yeah, right. They're gonna.
I wrote this tweet
suppress
in high detail, going into how Woodrow Wilson set up through his State of the Union address the ask for the Espionage Act. So that it could be used against citizens in the United States who were against the war in World War I.
Right. It's evil.
And we are now using it to target the First Amendment directly by extraditing Julian Assange, who's never been to the United States and is not a U.S. citizen.
And
I think
by the way, probably
connected a flight here once.
Probably the worst president. And I know you'd have to think Biden has to be worse than him, but so much bad happened under Wilson, who was, until Bush, the most academically trained, the highest educated president until George H.W. Bush. And yet 1913, that all happened under him. And I don't know whether that quote is correct or not, that he recognized it after he did it. But good God, why, it's like, man.
Well, and it's time to repeal that fucking law. And that's what I called for in the post. And, 254 freaking views. Whereas before I was getting something like a couple 100,000.
I'll tell you, I've been throttled
that's crazy.
years on Twitter Facebook, I hid myself, and then it keeps constantly unhides me. They changed their policies and then totally open everything back up again. I probably just need to close it out, but
Yeah.
I, still have friends from high school on there that I don't have any other way to, contact
Yeah.
them. But yeah, Twitter has forever.
I personally
pushed
suspect
down
Musk
mine
traded access to space for censoring Twitter again. That's my personal theory.
Mm.
I'm
You mean
guessing.
access
I'm guessing that
to-
they were going to stop him from launching Starship if he didn't
Oh,
get
you
in line.
think?
Yeah.
Wow.
If you wanted to leverage Elon Musk, that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's why I wonder about the CEO. And yeah, hopefully it's a figurehead. Hopefully this type of stuff is, there's always going to be a mix, but we'll see, I guess. I don't know. Some
Yeah.
crazy stuff's coming. Election
Yeah.
year's coming. We're going to see lots of violence and riots and crazy stuff. And hopefully
Yeah.
it'll.
Well, and I won't be stopping talking about Julian Assange just because Twitter decides that people shouldn't read it.
Right.
So
right. Well, what do they do when your paid account gets banned? Do they have any ruling on that?
I don't know if you have to maintain a certain amount of impressions in order to keep your account, but you may.
But if you get,
you can't weasel your way into getting
will they
an
refund
unpaid
you?
plan.
Will they refund you if you paid for a year and they say, "Oh, you're posting too much of this, you're gone"?
I have no idea. All I know is this is not the X we voted for.
Nope. But yep, you can't ever rely on a savior. So, all right, we should probably try to roll out. We got a quarter of an hour left. I don't know what you think. What's going on? What's going on? Do you have anything else, first of all, to cover before we?
I don't have anything immediate. To me, the news has been a little bit slow. I guess we didn't really talk about Trump yet. We should probably talk about Trump.
Yeah, you want to make a guess? Do you think he's going to be any of these?
Well, these indictments
successful. Yeah,
the Georgia indictment in particular is dangerous. Because of the powers that prosecutors have there.
Okay.
The likelihood that it could be quickly and easily pardoned or quickly and easily wiped out by act of the governor does not exist there. Right.
I don't think the governor would either. Right.
Right. So. And this is, keep in mind, this is a state court using federal law to impose a punishment, right? Like this isn't the federal government attacking Donald Trump. This is a Georgia prosecutor. So under Georgia law, if they get the convictions, then the governor can't do anything about it. Not quickly.
That's weird. Yeah, I don't know.
But it's obviously this is obviously Banana Republic tactic, right? Like they're obviously this is obviously our government. Yeah. Doing what's called lawfare. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the word lawfare, but you should look it up. Lawfare is the idea that you don't trust the Democratic base to choose the right thing. And so you weaponize the law against a political adversary. It's the same thing as Zelensky closing journalistic outlets that he saw as unduly critical of his regime, right? Or outlawing a political party. It's very similar.
I read a thread that really kind of hit home, in my opinion, that our entire world, and it's funny because they described it as our realm, our reality is very legalistic. Mm-hmm. And the reason it's very legalistic is because it's weaponized against you.
Yeah.
If you are not one of them, you have no idea what crazy circuitous loopholes there are in the law that are intentionally placed there so that they can get out of those issues that you cannot, and that's why, just like any totalitarian society, everything you do is in some way illegal, and it doesn't matter until they want it to matter, and then they come after you and do you in. And so, that's where we're at. And I think, when you have a billionaire like Trump that is like he's having to deal with that stuff. On the one hand, it's like, well, imagine what it'd be like for me, but on the other hand, it's crazy because if you upset them, it doesn't matter who you are, because he was the golden child. If you watch any of those old Oprah interviews, it's like
yeah.
they loved him. And
we have to talk about what I am just said, because it's like it implicates deep politics in a very scary way and fun way.
This one?
Will DeSantis block Trump's extradition to Georgia? So in the yay column, that would be the only possible way he can retain Trump's base and win.
Yeah.
In the nay column, he is the official candidate of the establishment Republican Party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm guessing that if he doesn't, that he loses some important backing that has him standing any chance of beating Trump in the primary election.
Yeah.
So, does he want to win, or does he want to win by losing?
Yeah, and if he was real, there'd be no question. I mean, if he wasn't just
one hopes he does a grandstanding type of speech where he refuses to extradite him.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be willing to bet that if he did that, then you're going to face this could be the instigator of a genuine armed conflict between a state and the federal government.
There's some crazy stuff possible because that people are like, oh, whatever, but it's unprecedented, especially in an election. It's like there are plenty of candidates that I would never want to be in, but I would not say, well, we should go after them legally in this way. And it's crazy. And the fact that if you look back at what happened in the Civil War, you look back at what happened in World War I, and domestically, you look back historically, and things can happen, and it's like, oh, they'll say, well, guess what? I'm not gonna show up in court. You can go screw yourself or something. I have no idea, right? And
well, if
it depends on who wins.
DeSantis does this, he will be outing himself as controlled opposition.
Oh, if he does what? If he
extradites him.
If he lets him be extradited.
Yeah.
Trump turned himself in. Trump wouldn't let him.
Oh, that was stupid.
Yeah, that was the one. Was that the New York
extradition,
one?
Man.
Was that the New York one? I can't remember.
This is why I like Julian Assange more than I like Trump. Right. Julian Assange made the fuckers carry him out of the embassy.
Yeah.
Trump should have refused to comply with his body. He should have just been stiff as a board, drag me out, motherfuckers.
That might be
Put
coming.
it on camera.
Yeah, that might be coming. We'll see, I guess. It's going to end up being a poster, though, whatever it is, right? So, I mean, I don't think they realize what the people that hate him so much emotionally, I don't think they realize what they're doing for the amount of power. It's an Obi-Wan thing. It's like
people need to get back on the idea that what we do now sets precedent for the future. Whether or not you like Trump, whether or not you like Biden, whatever you fucking support,
and that's the thing.
The status quo goes.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because a lot of normal middle America is not there yet. But once they are there, it's all over. Because once they and that's the thing. That's why one of the most prescient points that I saw during the riots, the last cycle of riots. Think about this now.
Which ones are those?
Was that when normal people who are law-abiding citizens, they have a job, they pay taxes, they have kids, they want good things for everybody. I just want to live in a nice city and state and live. When they see that the people who are actively throwing bricks into their cars, burning down buildings in their city, their downtown, aren't getting punished, and in fact are more so, they're getting pardoned, and they're getting their defense paid for by fucking celebrities and stuff. And then they realize that when they go and they protest something, they are arrested, and they get the book thrown at them.
Right.
When they show those two counters, and they start to think to themselves, everything points to the training for humans that, well, I should be doing something violent instead of just protesting, because if they're going to throw the book at me when I protest,
right,
and they aren't throwing the book at them when they're violent, they need to be afraid of me, because
Right.
right
Or
now
at the
they're
very
afraid of
least, if
those
you're going to
people.
get caught with your caught, if you're going to get caught, you might as well get caught with your pants down, right? Like,
Yeah, and it's the whole thing is like it's about you know, if the government really fears you, or you know, and right now the government just hopes that the double think sticks, and it's not going to stick for very long, because most of the double think stuff is, you know, it's become memes have solved our issues with communicating truth, I think.
right.
And that's, you know, that's probably the key to our
Yeah.
future.
Thankfully,
frankly.
large language models and image interpretation do not go well hand in hand.
Yes, yes. So, and you know, so there are going to be memes that are funny because they sneak info through, which is
Right.
going to be funny. It's like, oh, you know, the filter couldn't catch this one. So,
Right, because
anyway,
because the best they can do is describe the elements of an image using an AI. They can't get it to describe the cultural context.
yeah. So, okay, so
So
5 minutes. What's going on
yeah.
this week? What's going on
This week, so anybody who is paying attention to what's happening with Base may have touched on a really cool app called Friend Tech, which is letting people buy shares in people's social accounts, which when you do so, gives you access to a private chat.
That's cool.
It's super neat, but this idea only exists on Base, does not exist on Polygon or ETH or Ethereum Classic. And if you want to come up with a really cool project along similar lines, and you play with that and you go, you know, this would be better if, you know, you should try building that. And if you want to do that, Rivet is happy to help. Otherwise, if you want to get some shares of my Design Heretic account on X, please check it out, because I am perfectly happy to join you into my private chat. It's really neat because it gatekeeps the size of your private chat group by causing the price of your shares to rapidly rise.
That's cool.
So,
yeah, no, I saw some of that. I didn't get to look into it. We've been wanting to do something. We have a design for it on DIN to do similar things. So,
yeah. Well, if anybody wants to try it out, I have access codes that you can use to get into the closed beta. If you hit me up on Den, and only on Den, not on Twitter, you can get them.
Right on. Excellent. Okay, so for me, DinDAO later today. Join if you can. Hopefully, we'll come up with something that we can do with an executable plan. And make sure you share this episode, like it, subscribe.
Yep, smash those buttons, man. All
of
those
things you're supposed to do. I don't know.
Turn on all the alerts.
We should probably have reminders during the show. That we should get with John. You say, make sure at least 3 times during the show you tell people to subscribe. Anyway, whatever.
We need a song that's like the hidden track at the end of that early STP album, where it's like, hit the like button.
Yes, that's a good point. Hidden
Subscribe
tracks.
To every
randomly
feed.
They pop up right in the middle of someone talking. He already has the ones with the Sean, and he has one for you too, right? I think.
Yeah. It's
the
thing about you being somewhere in communication.
I hear, right? That nice. One, all right? Yeah. So we can have one of those that's a like or share, right? So anyway,
last thing too. Put up that I am.
Which one?
I am's last comment.
Off there. This one.
Yeah.
I didn't even look before I clicked it. So
that sounds like fun. I'm gonna read that.
Read I am for I am's fairy tale post in the Mighty Layer. King Brandon and parallel system takeover. Right on. So get out there and do that. And I would also challenge everyone. I don't know if you can do it in the Mighty Layer or not, but I've not looked at the settings in that layer. But make an anonymous post. Before the next show, make an anonymous post. Ideally, make an anonymous post on the next roundtable, which is employment and jobs next week. Employment and jobs. When that's up, make sure you leave a good question and vote on the ones that are there. And like, comment, subscribe. I think that's it. Everything else. Bye.
No mechanism exists to make payments over a communications channel without a trusted party. What is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust, allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party.